For a long while at the outbreak of the Dance of the Dragons, it was more of a war of words, with both sides still attempting to negotiate with the other in hopes of avoiding bloodshed. But when Aemond One-Eye killed Queen Rhaenyra's second son, Lucerys, in the skies above Shipbreaker Bay, that began a chain reaction with the revenge killing of Prince Jaehaerys, the heir of King Aegon II, and multiple assassination attempts on key figures on both sides of the conflict. The Dance of the Dragons entered into a new phase, as both sides called for vengeance and blood from the other. Now, any hope of negotiations were impossible. It became very clear it would only be a matter of time before the first real bloodshed in the form of a pitched battle. The war had changed in a moment, from an isolated conflict between two factions of House Targaryen into a bloody war that would divide the houses of Westeros, as houses up and down the kingdom caught their banners and rallied their levies, ready for war. All it would take is a spark to light the flame. With houses with long-standing rivalries, such as House Bracken and House Blackwood in the Riverlands, who would use the war to once again vent their ancient enmity. In the Riverlands, raiders out of Raventree Hall of House Blackwood, flying Queen Rhaenyra's quartered banner, crossed into the lands of House Bracken. They began to burn crops, driving sheep and cattle away, sacking villages and despoiling every sept they came on, as the Blackwoods were one of the last houses south of the Neck who still followed the old gods. When the Brackens gathered a strong force to strike back, Lord Samwell Blackwood surprised them on the march, taking them unawares as they camped beneath a riverside mill. In the bloody fight that followed, the mill was put to the torch, and men fought and died for hours, bathed in the red of the flames. Sir Amos Bracken, leading the host from Stonehenge, cut down and slew Lord Blackwood in a single combat, only to perish himself when a wayward arrow found the eye slit of his helm and drove deep into his skull. That shaft was loosed by Lord Samwell's 16-year-old sister, Alysanne, who would later be known as Black Aly. But whether this is fact or a mere family legend cannot be known. Many other grievous losses were suffered by both sides in what became known as the Battle of the Burning Mill. The fight lasted hours, well into the night and into the next morning. At first, the Blackwoods had the upper hand, then the Brackens, with the advantage switching back and forth for hours, with neither side managing to press their advantage. Ultimately, the Brackens finally broke and fled back into their own lands under the command of Sir Amos's bastard half-brother, Sir Rhaelon Rivers. It was only to find that Stonehenge had been taken in their absence, led by the husband of the Queen, Prince Daemon Targaryen, on Caraxes. A strong host made up of Darries, Roots, Pipers and Freys had captured the castle by storm in the absence of so much of House Bracken's strength. We don't know if the Blackwoods' attack was coordinated in order to lure the strength of House Bracken away from their castle, but needless to say, Prince Daemon used the distraction well. Lord Humphrey Bracken and his remaining children had been made captive, along with his third wife and base-born paramour. Rather than see them come to harm, Sir Rhaelon yielded. With House Bracken thus broken and defeated, the last of King Aegon II's supporters in the Riverlands lost heart and laid down their own swords as well. With the Riverlands now under the control of Prince Daemon, Harrenhal was taken without shedding a single drop of blood as the Castellan struck his banners as he saw Daemon approach. Harrenhal was an important prize, as despite it being a ruin, it is still a highly defendable position and a tactical asset, being able to control the Riverlands and into the Crown Lands from it. Prince Daemon, taking Harrenhal in the name of Queen Rhaenyra, sent out a message to many lords who doubted if she had the strength to fight a half-brother for the throne. The fall of Harrenhal to Prince Daemon came as a great shock to King Aegon and the Greens. Until that moment, King Aegon II had believed his half-sister's cause to be hopeless, with even some in the Queen's camp supporting this assessment. Harrenhal's fall left King Aegon feeling vulnerable for the first time and questioning the strategic approach of his cautious hand had advised up until this point, with his grandfather and Hand Otto Hightower's position now looking very weak. The defeat at the Burning Mill and the loss of Harrenhal were disastrous, as further blows came and made the king realise that his situation was more perilous than it had seemed. These fears deepened as ravens returned from the Reach, where the Greens had believed themselves strongest, while House Hightower themselves were rich and perhaps the strongest house in the realm at the time. with Oldtown being a strong strategic asset. They were strongly behind King Aegon, plus Aegon had the Arbor too, and the ships of House Redwine. But elsewhere in the south, other lords were declaring for Rhaenyra, amongst them Lord Costain of Three Towers, Lord Mullendore of Uplands, Lord Tarley of Horn Hill, Lord Rowan of Golden Grove, and Lord Grim of Greyshields. While this wouldn't necessarily prove too much of an issue for the forces of House Hightower, who would still outnumber the Queen's supporters in the Reach, some historians have speculated that the losses that Aegon faced so early in the war caused many of these houses to lose confidence in Aegon's cause. While the Battle of the Burning Mill itself was a small battle, fought between two houses with a few hundred men on each side, it was the first real battle of the Dance of the Dragons, and started a domino effect that would have implications on the course of the war in ways few could have predicted.